The battlefield was silent. Smoke rose in the distance, and the air was heavy with the smell of burned metal and dust. Bodies of soldiers, both human and alien, lay across the broken ground. The war between humans and the alien empire had lasted many years, but this day felt different. A young human soldier, Captain Ryan, stood alone, his armor damaged and his weapon almost empty. He had fought hard to stay alive, while many of his comrades had already fallen. Ryan looked around, waiting for another attack, but none came. The alien army had retreated, leaving him confused. Why would they run when victory was so close? Then, from the smoke, a figure appeared. She was tall, powerful, and covered in shining, dark armor. Her eyes glowed like burning suns, and the ground seemed to tremble when she walked. Ryan froze, his heart pounding, because he knew who she was. The alien queen, ruler of the empire, feared by all. She could destroy him in a single breath. Yet she walked toward him slowly. Every step felt like thunder in his ears. Ryan lifted his broken weapon, though he knew it would be useless. If this was the end, he would face it with courage. But instead of striking him, the queen stopped a few feet away. Her voice was deep and commanding, echoing across the empty battlefield. "Human soldier," she said, "you will obey my command." Ryan was shocked, his mind racing. Was this a trick? Was she going to laugh at him before ending his life? But her eyes were serious, burning with something more than anger. She raised her hand, and behind her 2 alien guards appeared, carrying someone with them. It was a young woman, weak but alive, with long silver hair and bright eyes. Ryan blinked, because she looked different from the other aliens. Her skin was softer, her features almost human. The queen placed her hand on the girl's shoulder and pushed her forward. "This is my daughter," the queen said, her voice heavy with power. "You will protect her with your life." Ryan almost dropped his weapon in disbelief. Protect her? Why would the queen order him, a human enemy, to guard her own blood? He looked at the girl again, and his shock grew. Her face had something strange, a familiar look. Her eyes were not only alien, they also carried the shape and color of human bloodlines. Ryan's heart skipped a beat. The truth was impossible but clear. The queen's daughter was half human. The girl stared at him, her lips trembling as if she wanted to speak but could not. Her gaze was full of fear but also curiosity. Ryan felt trapped. This was madness. Why him? Why would the queen trust the man who had fought against her empire? Before he could speak, the queen stepped closer, her shadow covering him. "You wonder why," she said, as if reading his thoughts. "I choose you because you have survived where others failed. You have strength and you have honor." Ryan swallowed hard, still unable to believe her words. He thought about refusing, about telling her he would never obey. But deep inside, something told him this was no simple request. This was a command that carried weight, one he could not escape. If he said no, she might kill him instantly, but if he said yes, his life would change forever. The queen leaned closer, her burning eyes locking onto his. "Protect her, or your world will suffer," she warned. Ryan clenched his fists, his heart pounding louder than ever. This was more than just a mission, it was a trap, a responsibility, and maybe even a curse. He finally nodded, not because he trusted the queen, but because he had no choice. The queen stepped back, her voice echoing one last time. "Then it is decided. Her life is in your hands, human." With that, she turned away, her guards following behind, leaving Ryan with the girl. Silence filled the battlefield once more. Ryan looked at the princess, unsure of what to say. Her eyes met his, shining with both fear and hope. And in that moment, Ryan knew his life would never be the same. He had come to fight aliens. But now he was bound to protect one, and not just any alien, but the daughter of the most powerful queen in the galaxy. The soldier stood tall, his mind torn between duty and doubt. One thought burned in his heart, louder than all the others. Why? Had the queen chosen him, and what danger lay ahead? The wind carried away the smoke of war, but inside Ryan's chest, a new storm had begun. This was no longer just a battle for survival. This was the beginning of something greater, something darker, something that would test every part of his soul. He had no idea then, But this single command would change the future of both humans and aliens forever, and the mystery of the Queen's daughter was only beginning. Ryan walked beside the alien princess, his boots crunching on the broken ground. The battlefield was silent now, but inside his mind, chaos screamed louder than war ever had. He was a soldier of Earth, trained to fight aliens, not to guard one. And yet here he was, walking with the daughter of the alien queen, the one who should have been his enemy. The girl glanced at him with nervous eyes, as if she wanted to speak but was afraid. Ryan finally broke the silence, his voice rough. "What's your name?" She hesitated, then whispered softly, "Elira." Her voice was gentle, almost human, but there was a strange echo in her tone, like music mixed with sorrow. Ryan studied her face again, and the truth struck him like a blade. Her features were alien, yes, but her eyes, her skin, her very presence, carried human blood. It was impossible, or at least it should have been. "Why do you look different from the others?" Ryan asked carefully. Elira lowered her gaze, her hands trembling. "Because I am different," she whispered. "My mother, the Queen, she created me from two worlds." Ryan's heart skipped. The meaning clear? She was half human, half alien. The secret the Queen had hidden from the galaxy. Ryan's mind spun. Questions crashed like waves. Why would the Queen do this? Why would she mix blood with the very race she fought against? Elira seemed to sense his thoughts, her voice weak but steady. She said, "I am hope. Or maybe a weapon. I don't know which." Ryan clenched his fists, unease filling his chest. Child born of two enemies, hated by both sides, it explained everything. Why the Queen wanted him, a human soldier, to protect her daughter. She couldn't trust her own people, because many would want Elira dead. The silence broke as a shadow moved across the rocks. Ryan reacted fast, pulling Elira behind him, his weapon raised. Figures appeared, alien assassins dressed in black armor, their eyes burning with hatred. One of them hissed, "The half-blood must die." Ryan's stomach turned cold. He didn't need answers anymore. The danger was clear. He fired his weapon, the blast lighting up the air. The assassins moved fast, blades flashing. Ryan fought with every ounce of strength, his arms heavy but his will unbroken. One assassin lunged at Elira, but Ryan threw himself in front, blocking the strike. Pain burned across his side as the blade cut his armor. He gritted his teeth and struck back, slamming the attacker to the ground. Elira screamed, her eyes glowing with sudden light. Energy burst from her hands, a wave of power that threw the remaining assassins back. Ryan stared in shock, breath heavy. Elira looked at her hands, terrified of her own strength. "I didn't mean to," she whispered, shaking. "I can't control it." Ryan grabbed her, shoulders firmly, his voice steady. "You saved us, don't be afraid of it." But deep inside he was afraid too. Her power was not just alien, it was something new, something born of two races. When the dust settled, the assassins lay silent. On the ground, Ryan pulled Elira close, keeping his eyes sharp. He knew more would come, more would hunt her. Because she was different, Elira's voice broke the silence, filled with quiet pain. "They hate me, my mother's people, your people too. No one wants me alive." Ryan looked at her, and for the first time, he didn't see an alien. He saw someone lost, someone carrying a burden too heavy for her age. "No," he said firmly. "You are alive, and as long as I breathe, you will stay that way." Her eyes widened, surprise mixing with hope. For the first time since they met, Elira gave a small, fragile smile. But Ryan's heart was heavy, because he knew this was only the beginning. The Queen had given him a task, but she had not told him the full truth. This girl, this half-human princess, was more than a daughter. She was a secret that could change everything. If the galaxy learned of her existence, war could erupt again. Stronger than ever, Ryan felt the weight of that knowledge pressing on his chest. He had been a soldier all his life, following orders, obeying commands. But this was different. This was not just duty. This was destiny. The night fell over the broken battlefield, stars glowing above like silent witnesses. Ryan and Elira found shelter in the ruins of a destroyed ship. She sat close to the fire they made, her silver hair glowing in the dim light. Ryan watched her, wondering what future lay ahead. Somewhere out there, the Queen was waiting, her plans hidden like shadows in the dark. But Ryan knew one thing with certainty. Protecting Elira would not be easy. Enemies would come from both sides, human and alien alike. But as Elira rested, her head leaning on her knees, Ryan felt something change in his heart. He was no longer just protecting her because of the Queen's command. He was protecting her because he wanted to, because somewhere deep inside, he knew this girl was more than a secret, more than a weapon. She was the key to a future neither race could yet imagine. And as the fire crackled in the cold night, Ryan whispered to himself, "The truth is dangerous, but I will not let it destroy her." Above them, the stars shone brighter, as if the universe itself was listening. The journey had only begun, and the hidden truth of Elira was just the first step. In a story that would shake the galaxy, the fire burned low inside the wreck of the old ship. Ryan sat near the entrance, his weapon resting on his knees, eyes sharp. Elira slept against a broken wall, her silver hair falling across her face, her breathing soft. The night was quiet, but Ryan's mind was restless. He kept hearing the Queen's command in his head, "Protect her with your life." He had obeyed, but deep inside, questions grew heavier. Why him? Why not her own people? Why trust a human soldier who had fought against her empire? Ryan looked at Elira again, her face calm in sleep, and yet her existence was dangerous. A half-human princess, hated by both sides, hunted by assassins, feared even by herself. He shook his head, because even though he had sworn to protect her, he had no idea how to keep her safe. When dawn broke, Elira woke, her eyes heavy with sadness. She looked at Ryan carefully, almost afraid, then asked, "Why do you not hate me?" Ryan blinked, surprised by her question. "Hate you? Why would I hate you?" Elira's voice was fragile. "Because I am not fully human, I am not fully alien, I am nothing." Her words cut through him deeper than any blade. Ryan leaned forward, his voice steady. "Listen to me, you are not nothing, you are alive, and that means something." Her eyes widened slightly, as if no one had ever told her those words before. For a moment, silence stretched between them, not heavy but gentle. It was the first thread of a bond, thin but real. They left the wreckage together. Moving across the barren land, the journey was dangerous. Every shadow could hide another assassin. Every sound could be a trap. Ryan walked ahead, scanning the path, while Elira followed, silent but curious. At times she asked questions. Small, simple ones, like a child discovering the world. "Do humans dream?" she asked once, her voice soft. Ryan glanced back, a faint smile tugging at his lips. "Yes, we dream, sometimes of things we miss, sometimes of things we wish for." Her eyes shone with wonder. "I have never dreamed. My mother says it is weakness." Ryan shook his head. "Dreams are not weakness. They are hope." Elira stayed, quiet, but he noticed she kept thinking about his words. Later, when they found a stream of water, Ryan bent down to drink. Elira knelt beside him, watching the way his reflection moved on the surface. "You are strange," she whispered. "Different from the soldiers I have seen before." Ryan looked at her. "Strange how?" She tilted her head. "You fight like them, but you speak like someone who carries weight inside, someone who understands pain." Ryan's chest tightened because she was right. He had lost friends, brothers, entire squads. War had carved scars into his heart, but hearing it from her, from someone who barely knew him, felt strange, almost comforting. Their bond grew stronger in silence, not in words. It was in the way Elira stayed close when shadows frightened her, in the way Ryan kept watch longer so she could rest, in the way she listened to him speak about Earth, about oceans and forests she had never seen. At night, when the stars spread wide above them, Ryan pointed at constellations. "That one," he said. "We call Orion the Hunter." Elira gazed up, her silver eyes reflecting the light. "Do you miss your home?" Ryan hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Every day. She lowered her head, whispering, "I do not know what home feels like." The words broke his heart. For all her power, for all her bloodline, Elira was lost, without a place, without belonging. And in that moment, Ryan realized his mission was not only to protect her body, but her spirit. She needed more than a guard. She needed someone who believed in her. One night, as they camped in the ruins of an old outpost, danger returned. A pack of alien beasts, their glowing eyes shining in the dark, surrounded them. Ryan raised his weapon, but he knew the odds were bad. The beast circled closer, teeth bared, growling low. Elira clutched his arm, fear shaking her. Ryan whispered, "Stay behind me." He fought hard, striking one after another, but more came, faster and stronger. His weapon ran low, and for a moment he thought this would be the end. Then Elira stepped forward, her hands trembling, her eyes glowing with hidden fire. A wave of energy burst from her, blasting the beasts, back scattering them into the night. When the silence returned, Elira fell to her knees, shaking, her power fading. Ryan caught her, steadying her in his arms. "You saved us," he said, his voice firm. Tears filled her eyes. "But I can't control it. I'm afraid of myself." Ryan looked into her eyes, strong and steady. "Then let me help you. We will control it together." She stared at him, and in her gaze he saw something new. Not just fear, not just sorrow, but trust, fragile and pure. It was the bond that had grown silently, now shining brighter than before. As the stars turned overhead, Ryan realized something he had never expected. He was no longer protecting her just because of the Queen's command. He was protecting her because she mattered to him, because she was no longer just a mission. She was Elira, the girl who was half human, half alien, and fully alive. And as she leaned against him, exhausted but safe, Ryan made a silent vow in his heart. He would never let her be alone again. The bond between them was no longer silent. It was unbreakable. And soon, that bond would be tested by enemies far greater than beasts. In the night. The journey back to the Queen's palace was long and heavy. Ryan and Elira traveled through ruined lands, across broken cities, and under skies painted with smoke. Every step brought them closer to the heart of the alien empire, closer to the woman who had started this strange mission. Ryan did not trust. Yet he knew the Queen had a reason for everything, and none of her reasons were ever simple. But Elira walked beside him with quiet strength, her bond with him now unspoken but real. She asked fewer questions. She carried herself taller, as if she was no longer only a frightened girl. Ryan saw it too. She was changing, but he feared the Queen would twist that change into something darker. When they finally reached the capital, Ryan was stunned. The city rose like a mountain of steel and crystal, towers glowing under the alien sky. Guards in shining armor lined the gates, their eyes sharp on him, the human outsider. Whispers followed them as they entered, alien voices hissing, "The Queen's daughter walks with a human." Ryan ignored them, but he felt the weight of their hate. Inside the throne hall, the Queen sat on her seat of power, her eyes burning like suns. Her presence shaking the room itself. Elira bowed low, but Ryan stayed standing, his jaw tight. He had not forgotten her command, her threats, her cold eyes. The Queen's gaze locked on him, and a slow smile touched her lips. "You survived," she said, her voice echoing. "And you protected what is mine." Ryan's hand tightened on his weapon, though he did not raise it. "Yes," he said firmly, "but I want answers. Why me? Why her?" The Queen rose from her throne, tall and terrifying, her armor shining like night. "You already know why," she said, her eyes flicking toward Elira. "Because she is different, and only you could keep her alive." Ryan swallowed, his chest heavy. "You made her half-human, didn't you? You used our kind." The Queen's smile deepened. "Yes, I did. Because war is never won by numbers. It is won by creation. She is my greatest creation." Elira flinched, pain flashing in her eyes. Ryan stepped closer, his voice sharp. "She is not a weapon. She is a person." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "And that is why you are here, human soldier, because you see her as more than my blood, more than my weapon." Ryan frowned, uneasy. What are you planning? The queen's words fell like thunder. You will not only protect her, you will join her, you will bind with her, you will become her husband. The hall froze. Even the guards stirred in shock. Elira gasped, staring at her mother with wide eyes. Mother, no. Ryan's blood turned to ice. What? He whispered, almost unable to speak. The queen's tone was cold and absolute. A union between human and alien bloodline, a symbol of peace, a weapon of unity. Your worlds will see this bond and they will bow to it. Ryan shook his head, anger flashing in his voice. You can't force this. I didn't come here for that. The queen stepped closer, towering over him. You think you have a choice, but you do not. Your life is already tied to hers. Your survival and her survival are one. Elira's voice broke through the tension, trembling and soft. Mother, please, I don't want him to be forced. I don't want this to be a chain. For a brief moment, the queen's expression flickered, something almost human passing through her gaze, but it vanished quickly. You will obey, she declared, or both your worlds will drown in war again. Ryan's heart pounded, the weight of her demand crushing him. He looked at Elira, her eyes filled with fear and shame, her hands shaking. She whispered, I never asked for this. I never wanted to trap you. Ryan stepped forward, his voice firm. Listen to me. This is not your fault. This is her game, not yours. But inside, Ryan was torn if he refused. He risked Earth burning in fire. If he accepted, he would lose himself to the Queen's plan. The impossible choice stood before him like a blade at his throat. That night, Ryan and Elira were given chambers inside the palace. She sat quietly by the window, staring out at the alien city. Her silver hair glowing in the moonlight. Ryan paced the room, restless, his thoughts heavy. Finally, Elira spoke, her voice breaking. Do you hate me now? Ryan stopped, looking at her sharply. No, I don't hate you. Her eyes glistened. Then why do you look at me like I'm a burden? Ryan shook his head, moving closer, his voice steady. You are not a burden. You are the only reason I am still standing, but this demand, this plan of hers, it is madness. Elira lowered her gaze, tears slipping down her cheeks. I don't want a bond made of chains, I want a bond made of choice. Her words struck him deep. For the first time since meeting her, Ryan realized something. This was no longer about orders, no longer about the Queen's threats. It was about Elira herself, her pain, her hope, her freedom. And though the Queen's demand was impossible, Ryan knew one thing clearly. He would not let the Queen decide their fate. As the night grew colder, Ryan made a silent vow in his heart. If there was a bond between him and Elira, it would not be forced. It would be earned. But he also knew the Queen would not let go so easily, and the battles to come would test not only their strength but their hearts. The palace was beautiful, but Ryan felt no peace inside it. Walls of crystal and steel glowed with soft light. Halls stretched endlessly, filled with alien art and guards in dark armor. Yet behind that beauty, Ryan felt the weight of danger, like knives hidden in shadows. Elira walked beside him quietly, her eyes lowered, her heart heavy with her mother's impossible demand. Ryan kept his hand close to his weapon, his senses sharp. He knew a place like this was not safe, not for him, and not for her. At first, the guards only watched them with cold eyes, but soon Ryan noticed whispers. The soldiers of the Queen did not trust him. They did not respect him. To them, he was still the enemy. And worse, Ryan could feel the hatred in their stares when they looked at Elira. Half-blood, some hissed under their breath as she passed. Elira kept walking, pretending not to hear, but Ryan saw the pain in her eyes that night. They were invited to a feast in the great hall. The Queen sat at the head of the table, her presence filling the room with silent power. Elira sat on her right, Ryan on her left, while nobles and generals lined the sides. The food was strange, glowing, fruits and steaming meats, none of which Ryan trusted. He ate little, his eyes scanning the room, every hand, every movement. The Queen raised her cup and spoke, her voice echoing. Tonight we celebrate survival. My daughter lives, and the human who guards her still breathes. Laughter and murmurs filled the hall, but Ryan heard the edge in their voices. To many of them, His survival was not something to celebrate, but something to hate. Suddenly, Alira gasped, dropping her cup, her hand clutching her chest. Her skin turned pale, her breath quickened. Ryan jumped to her side, catching her before she fell. "She's been poisoned," he shouted, his voice echoing through the hall. The room erupted in chaos, guards rushing, nobles whispering. The queen stood, her eyes glowing with fury. "Who dares?" Ryan lifted Alira in his arms, her body trembling, her eyes wide with fear. "Don't let me die," she whispered weakly, her voice breaking. "Never," Ryan said fiercely, carrying her out of the hall. He ran through the corridors, demanding healers, his voice roaring louder than any command. Alien healers rushed forward, bringing strange herbs and glowing liquid. They worked quickly, placing hands over her, chanting in low tones. Ryan refused to leave her side, holding her hand, his heart pounding. Minutes felt like hours, but slowly her breath steadied, her color returned. She opened her eyes, weak but alive, whispering, "You stayed." Ryan squeezed her hand gently. "I told you. I will never leave you." The queen entered the chamber, her face dark with rage. "Someone inside my court dares betray me," she said, her voice like thunder. Her eyes scanned the healers, the guards, the shadows. Ryan stood, his jaw tight. It wasn't random, it was meant for her, wasn't it? The queen's silence was the answer. Her own people wanted Alira gone, because of what she was, because of what she represented. Ryan's chest burned with anger. "And you still think she needs a bond of politics when your own house wants her dead?" The queen's eyes narrowed, but she did not answer. Instead, she turned and left, her cloak sweeping behind her. Ryan returned to Alira's side, sitting. Close as she rested, she whispered softly, "It will never stop. They will always try to kill me." Ryan shook his head firmly. "Let them try. I'll be here every time." Alira's eyes filled with tears. But this time, they were not only of fear, they were of something deeper, something that grew stronger between them with each day. The bond they had was no longer just silent, no longer just survival. It was trust, fragile but unbreakable. Days passed, but the palace grew colder. Ryan felt eyes on him everywhere. Shadows, moving where none should be. At night, blades flashed in the dark. Assassins slipping into their chambers. Ryan fought them off again and again, wounds cutting his skin, but never reaching Alira. Each attack only proved the truth. The greatest danger was not from outside the empire, but from within. Ryan began to wonder if the queen herself was testing him. Was she allowing these attacks? Was she watching to see if he would fail? Alira asked him once, her voice trembling, "Why do they hate me so much?" Ryan looked at her, his voice steady. "Because they fear you because you are proof that their world is not pure. That change has already begun." Her eyes widened at his words, and slowly she nodded. That night, when another assassin struck, Ryan and Alira fought together. Her powers lit the hall with blinding light, while Ryan's blade struck true when the enemy fell. Ryan looked at her, breathing hard, and saw it in her eyes. She was no longer afraid of herself, no longer afraid of the power inside her. For the first time, she accepted it, and Ryan felt his own heart shift. He was not just her protector anymore. He was her partner, her shield, her anchor in a world that wanted her gone. But outside their chamber, whispers grew louder, knives sharper, enemies closer. The bond between them was strong, but the walls of the palace were full of cracks, and somewhere deep in those cracks another shadow was waiting, sharper and deadlier than all before. The palace walls shook with the sound of war. Alarms echoed through the halls, red lights flashing across the ceiling like blood in motion. Ryan stood at the window of their chamber, staring out at the horizon. Ships filled the sky, human warships, their engines burning bright as they advanced toward the alien capital. The war had come again. Alira stepped closer, her silver eyes wide with fear. "They are your people," she whispered. "Your soldiers, your home." Ryan's chest tightened, his heart torn. For years he had fought for Earth, for his brothers, for the survival of humanity. Now, for the first time, his people were the enemy standing outside the walls. Behind him, alien guards rushed through the halls preparing for battle, The Queen's voice thundered through the palace. "Prepare the defenses. No human ship will leave this sky alive." Ryan clenched his fists, his mind racing. He had sworn to protect Elira, but could he truly raise his weapon against his own kind? The choice burned inside him like fire. Elira touched his arm, her voice trembling. "You don't have to fight them, but please, don't leave me." Her words struck deeper than any command. He looked into her eyes and saw not an alien, not a weapon, but the girl who had trusted him when no one else did. He whispered, "I won't leave you. Never." Outside, explosions shook the ground, human ships firing on alien defenses. The sky lit up with fire and smoke. Ryan knew soon he would be called to fight, but whose side would he stand on? The Queen summoned him to the throne hall. Her presence was more powerful than ever, her eyes blazing, her voice sharp. "You will lead my daughter to the front lines," she commanded. "You will stand beside her and show the galaxy that she is not weak." Ryan's jaw tightened. "You're using her as a symbol, aren't you? Not as a person." The Queen's smile was cold. "Symbols change the world, human, and she was created to be the bridge or the blade." Elira lowered her head, her body trembling. Ryan stepped forward, his voice hard. "She's not your weapon. She's not your tool. If you want me to fight, I'll fight to protect her, not your throne." The Queen's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. When they left the hall, Elira whispered, "You would stand against her." Ryan nodded. "If I have to." The battle reached the gates of the city. Humans pouring down from dropships, their weapons firing in waves. The alien army clashed with them, steel against fire, energy against bullets. The screams of war filled the air. Ryan and Elira moved through the chaos, her powers flashing like light across the battlefield. She shielded, soldiers pushed back enemies, her energy burning with strength she had once feared. Ryan fought beside her, his blade striking, his weapon roaring, every strike fueled not by orders, but by the promise he made. He would protect her no matter who stood in his way. But as the battle grew, Ryan's heart twisted. He saw human soldiers fall under alien fire, men who wore the same uniform he once wore. Their faces were his brothers, their screams were his. Past one soldier locked eyes with him, shock spreading across the man's face. "Ryan, is that you?" Ryan froze, his weapon heavy in his hands. He knew that voice. Sergeant Cole, his friend, the man who had once saved his life on Earth. Cole's face hardened. "You fight with them now, you fight against us." Ryan's chest ached, words choking his throat. "It's not what you think, I'm protecting her, she's—" But Cole raised his weapon, pain and betrayal in his eyes. "You chose them over us." Before he could fire, Elira pushed Ryan aside, a shield of light bursting from her hands. Blast struck Cole's squad instead, knocking them back, leaving silence in its wake. Ryan looked at her, his voice breaking. "You saved me, but they're my people." Elira's eyes shone with tears. "And I am not." Her words cut like a blade. Because in that moment Ryan realized the truth. He could not belong fully to Earth anymore, not after this. His bond with Elira had already tied him to something greater, something beyond human or alien. The battle raged for hours, until the skies turned dark with smoke. At last the human ships began to retreat, leaving the ground littered with bodies of both races. Elira collapsed to her knees, exhausted, her powers drained. Ryan knelt beside her, his hand steady on her shoulder. "You fought with them," she whispered. "Not as their weapon, but as yourself." Ryan looked at the burning sky, his voice heavy. "I didn't fight for them. I didn't fight for Earth. Either I fought for you." Her eyes widened, her lips trembling. "Why?" He held her gaze, steady and unshaken. "Because you're worth fighting for. Because you're not a monster. You're not nothing. You're Elira." She stared at him, and for the first time, a true smile touched her lips, small but real. The choice had been made. Ryan had chosen not Earth, not the Queen, but Elira. And though the war had ended for now, he knew it was not over. This fragile bond of loyalty and love would be tested again, because both humans and aliens would never accept what had happened this day. But Ryan no longer cared. He had chosen his path, and nothing in the galaxy could turn him away from it. In the key, battlefield was quiet at last. Smoke rose into the sky. Broken ships lay scattered like fallen giants, and the cries of the wounded echoed in the distance. Ryan stood among the ruins, his armor cracked, his weapon heavy in his hand. Beside him, Elira leaned against a stone pillar, her silver hair tangled, her eyes glowing faint but alive. She had fought until her strength was gone. Yet she had not. Broken, Ryan looked at her and knew the truth. She was no longer just the Queen's daughter, no longer just a half-human secret. She was a warrior, and she was his reason to keep fighting. But the war was not truly over. Not yet. From the smoke, the Queen appeared, her black armor shining, her steps slow but steady, her presence still commanding. Guards followed at her side, but even they seemed weary, broken by the endless fighting, her burning eyes fixed on Ryan, then on her daughter. "You survived again," she said, her voice low and sharp. "And you stood against your own kind, to keep her alive." Ryan's jaw tightened, his voice firm. "I didn't stand for you, I stood for her." The Queen's gaze darkened, but she did not strike. Instead, she studied him in silence as if weighing his soul. Elira stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "Mother, stop this war, please. It is destroying both our people. It is destroying me." The Queen's face flickered, her power meeting her daughter's plea. For a moment, the great ruler looked almost human, almost weak. Then her voice rose again. "Peace is weakness. Only strength keeps our enemies in chains." Ryan stepped forward, his eyes locked on hers. "You're wrong. Strength is not chains. Strength is standing together. Your daughter is proof of that. She is not weakness. She is the future." Queen's eyes narrowed. "And you believe you are part of that future?" Ryan's voice was steady. "I don't believe it. I know it." The hall fell silent. Even the guards lowered their eyes, uncertain. Elira's hands shook as she looked between them, her heart heavy. She whispered, "If you cannot end this war, then I will, with or without you." Light began to glow in her hands, brighter and brighter, her power rising like fire. The Queen's eyes widened. "Elira, stop." But Elira's voice cut through the air. "I am not your weapon. I am not your pawn. I am your daughter, and I will not let your hate destroy the galaxy." Her power spread across the ruins, pushing back the smoke, lighting the sky. For the first time, Ryan saw fear in the Queen's eyes, not fear of death, but fear of change. Ryan placed a hand on Elira's shoulder, steadying her, grounding her. "Easy," he whispered. "Don't burn yourself away. You've already proven who you are." Elira's light dimmed, her strength returning to calm. The Queen stared at them both, her silence heavy. Finally, her voice broke the air, low and cold. "So be it. If my daughter stands with a human, then the galaxy will witness it." Ryan tensed, unsure if this was acceptance or another trap. The Queen raised her voice, echoing across the ruins. "From this day my daughter will be bound not by chains but by choice, and the human who guards her will no longer be her jailer but her equal." Gasps rose from the guards, shock filling their faces. Ryan froze, his heart pounding. Was this surrender? Was this real? Elira's eyes widened, her voice soft. "Mother, do you mean it?" The Queen's gaze lingered on her daughter, and for once the fire in her eyes softened. "You are my blood," she whispered. "But you are also something I cannot control. Perhaps that is what makes you strong." She turned away, her armor glinting, her shadow long across the broken stones. The war was over, but peace was fragile. Ryan helped Elira stand, his hand steady in hers. They walked through the ruins together, past soldiers of both sides who now lowered their weapons. For the first time, no one attacked, no one shouted, no one fired. It was as if the galaxy itself was holding its breath, waiting. Elira looked up at Ryan, her eyes shining. "What happens now?" Ryan smiled faintly, weary but certain. "Now we begin again." She tilted her head, curious. "A new beginning?" He nodded. "Yes, but this time not as enemies, not as chains, but as something stronger." She leaned closer, whispering, "And if they don't accept us?" Ryan's Grip tightened on her hand, his voice steady. Then we'll make them together. The stars broke through the smoke above, shining brighter than ever. Ryan looked at them and felt something he had not felt in years. Hope. Not just for himself, not just for Elira, but for both their worlds. The war was ending, the Queen's command had changed. The galaxy had witnessed the impossible, and as Ryan stood beside Elira, the half-human princess who had once been a secret, he realized the truth. He had not been chosen only to protect her. He had been chosen to walk beside her, to help her shape a new future. His voice whispered into the night, steady and unbroken. I was sent to protect her, but perhaps she was the one meant to save us all. And so began a new chapter, a new bond, a new beginning.